Hello and welcome to another lore report. I'm Dante.
And I'm Kurs.
In this episode we're going to be talking through the latest tidbits of lore from Gamescom, the new map, Bastion cinematic, and how they tie together.
Before we start though, I want to apologise to you all for the past month or so, and thanks for sticking with us. I've said it on Twitter and in comments on other videos, but I'm getting married shortly, and pretty much all my creative time for the past few months has been taken up by that. It'll be back to normal soon, I promise. We all know Reinhardt and his iconic Crusader armour. Well, thanks to the Eichenwalde map, we now have a glimpse at what that order looked like, where they called home, and who led them. It's another case of how each separate nation looked to deal with the Omnic Crisis. We know Egypt had their elite snipers, for example. Well, in Germany, they had the Crusaders. Effectively modern day knights, these guys were equipped with Crusader armour that provided the wearer with plenty of protection and enhanced strength via rocket-powered suits. Equipped with giant two-handed weapons and with the ability to deploy large shields, the Crusaders at the time of the Omnic Crisis were led by Balderich Von Adler out of their base in Eichenwalde Castle, not too far from the city of Stuttgart. At the moment we know very little about Balderich, other than he still sits upon his throne in the castle he called home, his lifeless corpse acting as a simple in-game objective. Not very noble, I know. His armour is far more ornate than the others we see, but we do see variations throughout the brief glimpses we get of his subordinates. And then of course we have Reinhardt, who has what now looks to be relatively fancy adornments, but nothing like what Von Adler has. This suggests the designs may indicate rank or length of service in some way.
Eichenwalde is not just the home of the Crusaders, nor is it solely just another map for us to fight over. It formed a key part of the Battle of Eichenwalde, a massive engagement between the Omnic forces and the German military, with the Crusaders at the vanguard. While not all Crusaders were present, Balderich and a handful of his best soldiers fought valiantly to stem the Omnic tide. While the vast majority ultimately lost their lives against the overwhelming odds, they held out long enough to allow the German army to regroup and ultimately win the day. This was in the early days of the crisis, before the formation of Overwatch, and very probably represents one of the few victories humanity won against their enemy at the time. Reinhardt was one of the few Crusaders to survive the battle. It is entirely possible that his actions there were prominent in bringing him to the attention of the UN when the Overwatch initiative was first considered, much as Anna's work in Egypt did for her.
We've also had the first of Season 2 of the animated shorts with The Last Bastion. Even though it contains no dialogue, it is by far the most emotional to date, and very much worth a watch, or 12. Although we'll go through it in detail in our next short watch, we do get a glimpse at some new lore tidbits that merit a mention here. We finally get to see Bastion's backstory from his time as a frontline Omnic, the battle in which he was deactivated, hint it's Eichenwalde, and how he was reawoken. All told, this is what makes Ganymede such an important, and awesome, I love that bird, character to Bastion. Not only did he wake Bastion after what must have been over 25 years of slumber if we consider Eichenwalde was relatively early in the crisis, but he's the one that helped him somehow focus more on his fascination with nature over his aggressive core programming.
Large sections of the community have been referring to the post-traumatic stress disorder, or PTSD parts of the video, and we find it hard to disagree with this analysis. When Ganymede first wakes him up, he's fascinated in everything around him, but all it takes is the sound of a woodpecker, triggering memories of gunfire to set off his combat protocols. While we'll touch on this in more detail in Short Watch, having memories triggered by sounds and reacting accordingly is a very human trait, so seeing that in an Omnic is very compelling from a lore standpoint.
The other key thing we see is in the Battle of Eichenwalde itself, access through Bastion keying into the memory centre of a fallen robot. This ties the short together with the map, the Crusaders, and gives Bastion a sense of grounding in the Overwatch universe. Before this, he was effectively just a robot roaming the wilderness. This is the first time we see the true scale of the battles during the crisis. Sure, we've seen battles in the animated 2D sections before, but nothing with the sense of carnage that this short gives us. There are multiple Omnic models at work, from the Bastions to the Walkers and maybe Titans we've seen elsewhere, to the huge gunships floating overhead. Easy to see through this how the human armies were overwhelmed so easily.
It adds weight to the work of the Crusaders as we can see them in action. Before this, we'd only seen Reinhardt, so seeing several at work together is quite a sight and gives you a sense of how impressive the Order must have been at its peak. I wonder if we'll hear any more of the Order from Reinhardt when we take him back to the castle, or whether we'll ever see any Crusaders that may still be kicking around. Maybe this guy from Recall. As we've been writing this, the map has dropped onto the PTR, so we've dived in for a close look at all the Easter eggs and lore tidbits. Many of these are located in the attacker's spawn, the most obvious being the map of the Black Forest, showing locations for an Omnic artillery force, most likely the one assaulting Eichenwalde on its way to Stuttgart. Accompanying this, we can see several newspapers giving us some context to how the war is going at this point, Not well seems to be the answer, with the Crusaders having to fall back and Berlin hitting high alert. There are also lots of other Omnic related materials around, with posters informing the local citizens, as well as the clear aftermath of the battle, showing us other combat units beyond just the regular Bastion units. The map as a whole really is like one big time capsule in the early days of the Crisis. I wonder why nobody has seemingly been back since.
Lastly, one of the more subtle references across the map comes from the various coat of arms scattered around the walls, in banners, and even on some armour. We don't know the names of these houses, but it's a fair guess that they belong to some of the greatest Crusaders, and that the order therefore was reasonably old and well established. We also have a few Easter eggs of sorts in the map, such as this poster containing an image of several birds, including a yellow cardinal, which is a species that Ganymede belongs to. Our favourite though is this nice little doff of the hat to another great game series we're fond of, in the form of this Dark Souls bonfire in the defensive spawn. Praise the sun.
Thanks for watching this episode of the Lore Report. What do you think about the new map and the Crusaders? Where are you hoping we'll see next, and how about Bastion and his PTSD? What does that mean in the grand Omnic discussion? Any thoughts on the possible Crusader headshot from Recall? If you liked this episode, please hit that like button, and if you want to see more, hit that subscribe button. The next Lore Watch is almost here, so until then, I've been Dante.
And I've been Kurz.
Thanks for watching.